This is Project 3, our professional development plan for writing objective test items. This is a project completed for EFD 620 at Jacksonville State University. I'm Kenny Clevenger.
And I'm Susan Wills.
And I'm Lauren Humphries.
And we came together to create a professional development plan for this assignment that we might present to a faculty, and ours concerns objective test items. We began with some general guidelines, and Lauren is going to walk you through those guidelines the way we would teachers in the beginning of PD.
So here's some guidelines for the objective test questions. We want our items to be matched to the intended outcomes in order to provide a measure of instructional objectives. We want to limit the questions to the items that are being assessed. We want our questions to deal with the important aspects of the content area. We want them to be independent of other items. We want the items to have one correct or best answer. We want to avoid trick or catch questions, and we should require higher order thinking skills for these test items.
There are different choices for different teachers. Different teachers like different types of test items, but many people believe or feel that multiple choice tends to be the best. In fact, Pate and Caldwell from 2014 said that multiple choice items or that format lends itself to frequent use due to its ability to test a broad scope of knowledge, its practicality, and ease of grading. The things we're going to go through today are the various types of objective test items, and we'll see that multiple choice might be a teacher's choice, but it's not the only choice for creating valid tests. Okay, so we'll begin with matching items, and we just sort of listed out some advantages and disadvantages based upon the textbook author's information from this course. Walking through matching test items, advantages include the simple construction and the simple scoring that matching presents for the teacher. It also gives a good measure between associations of facts. And is more efficient than other test items, specifically multiple choice, because it saves space on the page. And matching test items cut down on the guessing factor. As we're going to see when we talk about true false, guessing can play a role in whether a student gets something right or wrong. But there are some disadvantages for matching test items, and according to our textbook authors, matching items can focus too much on trivial information. Simple associations are not always the kind of thing that you want to push when you're trying to go for rigor in the classroom. Another disadvantage might be that it only assesses memorization, and as we all know, memorization is the lowest level of learning. And matching items are also limited in size based upon some commercial grade, oh my goodness, scoring sheets that you could buy. Those limit those to only like 5 items at a time. So that could limit the size of what you're trying to do.
And then we took a look at the true false test items, the advantages and disadvantages of those, again, according to our textbook authors. The advantages are that the students can answer many items in a short time. The scoring is simple, objective, and speedy. The large amounts of content can be assessed in a short amount of time, and the true false items are also useful for assessing just factual knowledge. So that does not get into the higher order thinking skills, but it does assess the factual knowledge. And the disadvantages of true false test items are that there's a 50-50% chance of guessing the correct answer. So many students will just guess, and it's hard to assess whether or not they know whether or not they're meeting the objectives or not. And then another disadvantage of true false test items are that it emphasizes rote memorization of knowledge. Again, like I said, the higher order thinking skills are not present there in these type of items. And then we took a look at the multiple choice test items. The advantage of these are that they can be scored easier and accurately, and the students prefer this method of questions. The multiple choice test items have a large amount of course material that can be sampled in a relatively short time. And due to the multiple options, the guessing is reduced. So the students are not able to just have a 50-50 chance on guessing for this type of question. The disadvantage of the multiple choice test item is that it can be time consuming to write. They can have more than one defensible correct answer. So it can get confusing sometimes for the students.
The last test item type that we discussed was completion test items. And so if this were a real PD and we were walking through these, we'd talk about the advantages of completion test items here. Advantages include that they're very easy to write. Teachers can just do fill in the blanks or other types of open-ended sentences for the test. It eliminates guessing pretty much altogether because you're not giving the students any kind of choice. They're simply having to finish the thought or fill in the blank. And also, completion test items are able to cover more content than other types of tests. But as with any test item, there are some disadvantages. Completion test items cover low level of complexity. They're difficult to score because it's not just looking at a list of A, B, C, D or true, false. And they usually only measure recall. So again, with all of these kinds of test items, we're dealing with relatively low levels of learning.
Another thing that the book looked at was gender and racial bias in the test items, and the authors really talked about how sometimes these test writers have a hard time and do this unknowingly while writing the test, and these bias can occur when the test items are written. They're typically exclusively using the male pronoun he. They can refer to members only of a single ethnic group or cultural group, and references in the test items should carefully balance out the use of these. And typically you do see the pronoun he used much more, or they'll talk about baseball or something like that whenever it's not really female related. So in an article that I read, test publishers go to great lengths to make sure that the questions in their test are not biased and that their recommend uses of the test are not likely to be unfair to members of one gender. I read a study about the SAT test. It was done in New York. A case actually got brought up against it, and they argued that the SAT test was more biased towards females, and they actually won the case. And so this is a big thing that should be taken into consideration.
So at this point in our PD, we would transition into an activities session. We've given the information to the teachers, so it's time for them to do a little work. And Lauren's going to talk to you a little bit about this first activity, about bias.
So our first activity goes right along with bias, and I just gave two little examples. One of the questions is, runner is to marathon as regatta is to, and they're just basically saying that this is a discriminatory item because some kids are not privileged enough to know about rowing or live even where rowing would be taking place, like on the coast. If you live, not on the coast, you're not going to know what rowing is. Another question is, a baseball diamond has 60 feet between the bases. How far is it from home plate to second base? Some students might not know the shape of a baseball field or realize that it's a diamond or the layout of the bases. And so that can be gender biased in that way.
And we also have another activity about writing test items, and Susan's going to talk a little bit about that.
So when we present this in a PD format, we would have the teachers write 2 true-false test items and make sure that they include these standards, that the statements are definitely true or definitely false, so there's no confusion there, that the test items are relatively short statements and they eliminate unneeded material or unneeded information, that they keep statements that are about the same length, not too long, maybe not too short, that these test items, they would also avoid using double negatives, and that they would avoid broad general statements that are not true or not false. So just being clear, not ambiguous. And then also we would have the teachers write 2 multiple choice questions to be sure that they included these standards. One and only one clearly best answer, again, to avoid confusion. That the multiple choice test items would show that the wrong answers would be reasonable, keep the length and the answer choices reasonable, that they would avoid using all of the above, that the test items would include 3 to 5 options, so that would discourage guessing. The fewer options they have, then they're more prone to guessing the answer. The matching test items, they would write 2 matching questions that would keep both the list of descriptions and the options short. The descriptions on the left side and the options on the right side, that they would be short and generally the same length. That these test items would also include more options than descriptions. So on the right, more options than on the left, the descriptions. The descriptions should be on the left, like I said, and contain longer phrases, while the options are on the right with the shorter phrases. That's how these questions should be formatted.
And once the teachers then did these things, they covered these activities, we would have sharing time and also collaboration time, so that we could all grow from the experience. When that's over, it would be time to score the PD itself. And so we have a rubric that we've created to score what the teachers experienced during this professional development. The first category would have been goals, and there are 4 levels, up to 4 points. If something earns 1 point, that means that essentially the goals were not articulated at all, and then it travels up from there the way a rubric would do. The hope is that this PD would garner lots of points, not small amounts of points. So I'll walk you through the other categories as well. There are 4 categories in this rubric. Goals is the first category, instruction is the second, time management is the third, and content is the fourth. So essentially what we wanted was to make sure that in terms of the goals, that they were clearly stated and that teachers felt that they knew why they were there. Instruction was presented in a way that was clear, creative, and had cohesive activities that were complementary of one another. In terms of time management, that the teachers felt that their time was spent well, and that the things they did pertain to the topic at hand. Content, we wanted the content to be material that was expected and robust. And if all those things were done, then we would have done everything that we wanted to do.
And these are the references that we used for our slideshow and for the different types of test items and questions.
So again, we covered material from Educational Testing and Measurement. That was our textbook by Kubizin and Borish. We had quotes from Pate and Caldwell, quotes from Childs, and then also from Smith. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.